Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadiens Connection Podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. My name is Michael Spinella, and I'll be your host for the next hour. This is episode 268 of the Canadiens Connection Podcast, and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by my co-host, the editor of the Hockey News Montreal, the founder and the president of Rocket Sports, and the birthday boy, Mr. Rick Stevens. Happy birthday. How's it going?
Oh, what happened there? How did that news get out? Birthday tomorrow. Thank you very much. That's kind of fun. Caught me off guard there, but I appreciate the good wishes. Our first podcast of November, which will be a pivotal month in many ways for the Montreal Canadiens. Great month of October, maybe an unexpected month of October. But we have some news and things to talk about for what's coming up in November, and I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, you'll have to direct some blame towards one Amy Johnson for that intro, but
I see. All right.
Plenty of good stuff to talk about on the show, of course. We'll get you all up to date on everything Montreal Canadiens. Some success last week in their games, some updates on the roster, prospects, and then some news from around the league. In segment 2, it's all about Slafkovsky versus Cooley, featuring an interview with Remy Mastey from THN Arizona. And in segment 3, it's a Have Your Say segment. Our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, how would you handle Slafkovsky's development going forward? And Rick, I know a lot of our listeners like to reach out and interact with us. What's the best way for all of them to do so?
Well, we certainly heard from them this week. Tons of texts, some emails, reaching out to us on social media. We're calling this episode 268 of the Canadiens Connection, Slafkovsky's development, crucial crossroads for the Habs. And if you have anything to say about Juraj Slafkovsky, his development, the way he's been handled, managed, reach out, or listen, any other comments that you have, reach out to us at our Rocket Sports text line. It is 5853-ROCKET, 5853-ROCKET. Text us 24 hours a day, or send us an email, hello@rocketsportsmedia.com.
You can also reach out to us on social media. Just make sure you're following at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. Please make sure to check out our comprehensive game day previews and post-game recaps for every Montreal Canadiens game at thn.com/Montreal. And since we've been gone, Montreal has played 3 games, going all the way back to October the 28th. Montreal and Winnipeg faced off, and Montreal comes away with a 4-3 shootout win. It was the return of Caden Cooley to the lineup. He looked good. It looks like he hasn't missed a single game, to be honest. Allen had a pretty solid start. Justin Barron, Sean Monahan, and Yoel Armia with regulation goals, but Nick Suzuki leads the way for the Habs to the win in the shootout.
This was the Canadiens looked completely unprepared to begin this game. For the first period and the first minute of the second period, they were completely dominated. I think the shots were something like 18-6 in the first period. But this was all about Jake Allen. Jake Allen stole this win. He was great during regulation time, great in overtime, and great in the shootout.
A few days off in between games here, but going to October the 30th, Montreal heads to Vegas, and it's a 3-2 Vegas shootout win. So a couple late-night shootouts over this past week. Sean Monahan scored probably the easiest goal he'll ever score off of a misplay from Aiden Hill. Aiden Hill came out to play the puck, fanned on it completely, and then dove across the ice to the other end, leaving a completely wide-open net for Sean Monahan to capitalize. Shorthanded. Nick Suzuki scored the tying goal towards the end of the game there, but Vegas came away with a shootout win.
Well, and Montreal came out with a lot of praise from their head coach, Marty St. Louis. He called this the best game that his team has played since he took over coaching, which is big praise, particularly given that they didn't get the win. But it was a big challenge against defending Cup champions, and they looked really good, and so good, in fact, that Sam Montembeault didn't have to be a factor through regulation. He had 2 shots to face in the second period. He was good in overtime, though. And as you said, I really liked Caden Gooley in this game.
Absolutely. And then a couple days off in between before we go to November the 2nd when Arizona comes to town, and Arizona wins 3-2 against Montreal. Allen with another strong showing in net. Monahan and Gallagher continue to put up points for Montreal, but Schmaltz and Krause came away with the goals for Arizona. Also, Logan Cooley got an assist on the night. 3-2 Arizona was that one.
Yeah, I liked Brendan Gallagher in this game. I liked a lot of the players in this game. The bad news, and we'll get to that in the injury update, that the Canadiens lost a forward, actually a winger off their top line.
Absolutely. So the Canadiens' record is 5-3-2. That's 13th in the NHL, so they're doing pretty well in the standings at the moment. Please continue to check out Habs Notepad, Habs headlines, feature articles, and game day posts appearing regularly at thn.com/Montreal. For some roster news, Caden Gooley did return to the lineup this past week, and like I said, a lot of praise going towards him. He looked like he didn't miss a single game, and man, that Montreal defense really benefits from having him back there.
I'll say more about Caden Gooley because I got him on my list to talk about in a minute, but he's been terrific since his return.
Kirby Dach underwent successful knee surgery. He posted photos to his social medias. Looks like he's got a pretty interestingly shaped and large cast on his leg. So wishing him a nice recovery from that.
He had surgery at the Special Surgery Center in New York City. The surgery was performed by Dr. Robert Marks, same surgeon and same hospital that did Carey Price's surgery. All was said to be successful, and it's hoped that he'll be ready for the start of next season. Interesting, the picture that he posted, and the tweet that he put out says, "Surgery done, big check mark. Thanks everyone for the support over the last few weeks. Road to recovery starts now." Lying in a hotel room bed and with a knee brace, a big thumbs up, and a bucket hat. And if you say, "Hey, wait a minute, I've seen that bucket hat before," our keen spotters said it's a Louis Vuitton monogram essential bucket hat. It was also worn by Christian Dvorak after his surgery and Cole Caulfield after his surgery. If you'd like a bucket hat like that, it retails for, I believe, $650.
Okay, yeah, I'll get on that next time I recover from surgery.
Great.
I'll make sure I'm wearing a bucket hat too.
Yeah.
And finally, Raphael Harvey-Pinard is listed as day-to-day with a lower body injury. He left the game versus Arizona and never returned.
Yeah, tough. He went awkwardly into the boards, and he tried to come back and took another hit. You saw him wincing. The Canadiens just report that it's a lower body and day-to-day.
Yeah, so now it's a good time to get to our this week's winners and losers.
And now it's time for this week's winners and losers on the Canadiens Connection.
So we'll start off with our winners of the week. Our losers will tie in to the next thing that we do here. But Rick, I'll let you have the lead here.
I said I was going to talk about Caden Gooley, so I'll talk about Caden Gooley. Man, he's looked good. He's looked so comfortable. Any of you that have watched him in junior, he was just a player to be feared. And that physical play, that edge, that grittiness, that meanness has been coming out. Very physical, punishing the forwards. but also carrying the puck. He's skating well. He's joining the rush. He's leading the rush at times. And I know plus minus isn't the best stat out there, but he's a +7, and that's top 15 in the NHL right now.
That's impressive for sure.
The other guy that I have in this category, now listen, Sean Monahan has had a great start, arguably the best Canadian so far, and he's getting a lot of attention, and deservedly so. But I don't think, you mentioned the Canadiens' record, you mentioned that they're currently in a playoff position if the standings stayed the same. A lot of that has to do with Jake Allen in goal. Jake Allen's been terrific in wins, in losses. He's been outstanding. And there was one statistic that kind of put it towards, it broke the tie, I guess, for me, whether to put Jake Allen in this winners category or Sean Monahan. And the stat is that the Montreal Canadiens as a team have given up 151 high-danger scoring opportunities. 151. How does that compare? That's third most in the NHL. So it's been goaltending. It's been goaltending that has them where they are. And for the most part, it's been Jake Allen who's been carrying the mail in that regard. So I have him on my winner of the week.
Yeah, Jake Allen is a great choice there. I think at least 2 or 3 of these wins can be attributed fully to Jake Allen, really going in there, solidifying that number one goalie job for himself. And honestly, he's been lights out for the most part. Really no complaints, with the exception of maybe the first game of the season against Toronto, where I think it was a little bit up and down for him. But since then, absolutely great start for Jake Allen. I hope he can keep it up, though. This is going to be difficult, like you said, a lot of high danger scoring chances. So let's hope he can continue to play like that. Well,
I think, and that's a good point. Can he keep it up? I think right now the schedule has really been helping the Canadiens and the goaltending. And we said at the beginning of the season that the Canadiens had a really favorable schedule in October. There wasn't any long road trips. They're on a 3-game road trip now, but even on this road trip, they arrived in Arizona. They had 2 days. They got to go to the World Series game. On the other hand, their opponents, the Coyotes, played on Wednesday night in Anaheim. They flew back for the Thursday game. They couldn't land because of noise abatement laws. They had to go to an alternate airport and bus in, got in late. So the schedule so far, that's going to catch up to them. But so far, the schedule has been a winner as well for the first month of the season.
And my winners for the week, well, I think they're more just winners for the past month, to be completely honest. I went with the Vegas Golden Knights and the Boston Bruins. I know fans might not like this, but both undefeated in regulation after 1 month. I think you have to give some respect there. Boston was a team that was heavily speculated to take a step back, and they've picked up right where they left off last season. Vegas Golden Knights winning the Stanley Cup. You always expect the Stanley Cup winners to get off to a slow start. Again, they picked up right where they left off, so you have to give some respect there. Each team have one overtime loss, so they've both lost, but not in regulation, so at the very least they're on a point streak. Vegas has played 11 games so far. Boston, 10 games, but nonetheless, very impressive records for both.
I'll reluctantly agree with you.
Thank you, Rick. And we're going to do something a little bit different, and we're going to do our bad tweets of the week.
Listen up. It's time for some bad tweets on the Canadiens Connection.
So there have been a lot of bad takes this past week, and a lot of them centering around Juraj Slafkovsky and Logan Cooley. The Arizona Coyotes come in right here with a tweet that they sent out after the game against Montreal the other night. And the caption is, "When you don't draft Logan Cooley number 1." And there's a GIF. I'm sure your imaginations can fill in the blank of what that GIF is indicating. So Arizona throwing a little bit of shade towards Montreal. But to be honest, this is kind of my reaction to not taking Logan Cooley number one at the moment, at the very least, right?
Yeah, this is, if you've been on Twitter, you've seen this this GIF used in 1,000 different circumstances. It's the Vince McMahon GIF, and I didn't think this was that bad. Arizona, they're throwing shade at the Montreal Canadiens. Well, okay, fine. What else have they got, really? So when you don't draft Logan Cooley number one, I was fine with it.
Yeah, it's fine. At least Montreal has an NHL arena to play in. And some stability. Yeah. So it is what it is. And
a couple of cups, and yeah.
Yeah, Arizona, let them have one thing at the very least.
Sure.
And the other one comes out from, I think, a listener favorite, Grant McKegg on X. And Rick, I'll just let you take the lead on this one. I don't think I can get through it.
So Grant tweeted this week, if there's one thing that will get Slaf going and boost his confidence, it's to have him trending number one on Twitter after every game by totally trashing him. It worked wonders with Kotkaniemi, and surely it will inspire Slaf as well. Keep it up there, Habs fans. The always sarcastic and the often wrong Grant McKegg. Listen, Juraj Slafkovsky, nor any other NHL professional athlete is not boosted or driven by anything he sees on Twitter. To blame Habs fans for Slafkovsky's performance. To blame Habs fans for running Kotkaniemi at it, it's ludicrous. It's nonsense. It's silly. He should know better. I hope he knows better. Maybe he was just, he's been, a number one fan for Slafkovsky, and I guess he's frustrated with maybe the organization, frustrated with the performance of Slafkovsky, and he's, taking it out on fans, criticizing fans. I think that deserves a bad tweet.
Yeah, I think fans are allowed to voice their opinions here. If any fan has watched Slafkovsky over the last 2 years or looked at his statistics, I'd be shocked if you were completely satisfied with his play. And I think as fans are allowed to voice the disappointment. Is this all about shaming Slafkovsky? I don't think it's totally about that. I think a lot of this goes towards the organization and how they've handled that situation. So, you know what? I think fans are allowed to voice their thoughts on it, and clearly a lot of fans are very disappointed in the performance by Slafkovsky so far this year. And
fully justified. And, this again, it just doesn't understand. He doesn't understand how professional athletes work. If Slafkovsky went on social media and saw some comments, is he going to be shocked by them? Is he going to say, wait a minute, I thought I was playing great? No, that's just so dumb. Slafkovsky is the first one. Those guys know their stats. They know also how they're playing. And you know what? The guy sitting next to him in the locker room knows how he's playing too. They immerse themselves, and maybe for Slafkovsky it's too much internal pressure. But he knows the last time he scored. He knows his statistics. This feeling that it's all coming from the fans is I said it before. It's just silly.
Yeah, I don't think fans should be taking the blame for how the Montreal Canadiens have managed Slafkovsky. I don't think fans should be taking the blame for how Slafkovsky has played so far. Everyone's watched him. They know what the product is at the moment. So just a bad take here from Grant McKegg. I don't know what his expectation is here. Should we be singing praises for him on social media? I think that would all be pretty fake at this point. Should we just not be talking about it at all? No, he's a first overall pick. Absolutely, fans should be voicing their opinions here. One
more, and then we'll leave it. But this relates to Kotkaniemi. Don't blame the fans for Kotkaniemi. We remember Marc Bergevin trashed Kotkaniemi in public. We remember Claude Julien trashed Kotkaniemi in public. So that it wasn't on the fans either.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think we should be blaming the fans. Don't point your finger at anyone on Twitter about this. And on that note, we'll get along to our Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world. Bookmark thn.com/Montreal to follow our comprehensive coverage of Canadiens prospects.
So each week we like to shine the spotlight on a Habs prospect, and this week we've chosen one, Jacob Fowler, the goaltender. He was picked in the 3rd round this past draft. Currently, he's rocking a 6-1 record with Boston College. He's had a great start to his season, and full credit to him, playing very, very well in net.
Hasn't Jacob Fowler appeared in our spotlight before? He sure has, but he deserves to be there a second time. Jacob Fowler was named not only, I think he had a goaltender of the week in the past, but Jacob Fowler was named Hockey East goaltender of the month for the month of October. And that was because of his 5-1 record in the month of October, a .215 goals against, a .919 save percentage in that month of October. On Friday night, he had his 7th straight start in goal for Boston College Eagles. And we can happily report that he won that start as well against UMass, giving up just 2 goals on 29 shots.
So I believe this has been said before, but it seems like all he ever does is win, right?
Yeah, and he's doing it again.
Absolutely.
Now, he's got some help. He's got a little help.
Yeah.
And I think we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, keeping along with the NCAA here. We'll give you an update on this week's USCHO division poll. And, Boston College is currently ranked number 1, and that Boston College team is absolutely stacked. Not only do they have Jacob Fowler, but Cutter Gauthier, Will Smith, Ryan Leonard, lots of first-round picks, lots of legitimate prospects on this team. And, just looking up and down this roster, I feel like they'd be absolutely unstoppable. That
second line has Will Smith centering Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault. That's a pretty impressive line, and you already mentioned Cutter Gauthier. So the reason that Boston College jumped up to the number 1 spot, they were in last week, they were in the last poll, they were in 3rd, was based on the 5-1 record that we talked about, delivered partly by Jacob Fowler. The other big mover I saw in the poll was at number 5, and Wisconsin. We know Wisconsin. That was where Cole Caulfield was. And they're up to number 5 this week. They were number 14 last week, so an enormous jump for Wisconsin, and that's because they went 7-1-0. Very good for them. The top 5, the full top 5, Boston College, Denver number 2. They were number 2 last week. North Dakota at 3, up from 4, and Michigan at number 4, up from 6.
Absolutely. If we want to fly across the ocean over to Europe, we do have some updates on David Reinbacher. He's back in the lineup with Cloton in the Swiss League. He's been away for a couple weeks now with an injury. He's only played 4 games so far this season.
Yeah, back on the top pairing. That was good to see. When he went out with that injury, it was speculated that anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, so it fell in that timeline. Back in the lineup, back on the first pairing. That's all good news for David Reinbacher and good news for the Canadiens.
For sure. And someone's going to be joining him, someone that Habs fans might recognize. Nathan Beaulieu signs a 1-year contract with Cloton. I wonder if there's a possibility that these two players are going to play together on that top pairing. Nathan Beaulieu has not been with the Habs since 2017, but most recently suited up for 53 games with the Ducks last season.
Nathan Beaulieu drafted number 17 overall in the first round, the 2011 draft by the Montreal Canadiens. And famously, when he was drafted, and he was getting question after question in French because of his last name, said, "Stop it. I don't speak French." And had to make an apology. But he had a decent career in the NHL and maybe a good mentor for David Reinbacher in Cloton.
So let's take a look at the Laval Rocket from this past week. Since we last talked, they have played in 3 games. Going back to October the 28th, Laval visited Syracuse and lost 5-0. Only 19 shots on net for the Rocket, 0 for 5 on the power play. Strauss-Mann really struggled in net on this one. Not a great performance from him. Luckily, they had a few days off to reflect before their next game. Heading back home, Utica came to visit, and Utica wins 4-1 against Laval. The lone goal comes from Jaden Struble. That's his first career pro goal, so it's a memorable goal at the very least. The Rocket go 0-4 on the power play, and for Utica, it was Parent that got the hat trick and led to the victory. A couple more days off in between before we get to November the 3rd when the Toronto Marlies come to town to visit Laval. And a win, the second win of the season. Laval wins 5-3. Jakub Dobis was in net, and he looked unbelievable. Maillet scored 2 goals to help Laval get the win, and the losing streak is over at 4 games. Both of Laval wins so far this season have come with Jakub Dobis in net.
This was looking grim. Watch the game. For the first 2 periods, the Laval Rocket were vastly outplayed by the Marlies, and it looked like the Marlies kind of fell asleep. 4 goals in the 3rd period by the Rocket delivered the win, and it was Jakub Dobis while the Marlies were dominating, making save after save.
Joshua Waugh was named AHL Rookie of the Month. 12 points in 9 games will seal the deal for him. He's been a great addition to the Laval Rocket team so far this season. Absolutely,
and worthy of that AHL Rookie of the Month. In 7 games in October, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. Has cooled off a little bit lately, but with the Rocket now back home and now having a bit of a time off to practice and rest a bit, I expect him to fire it up again in November.
So the Rockets' record currently 2-6-1-0. That's 32nd in the AHL. So not going well so far for them. But like you said, a bit of a lighter week. Next week, their only game is on November the 4th. So that's Saturday tonight. It's going to be Toronto visiting Laval once again.
A rare Saturday night game, especially with the Canadiens playing at the same time for Laval. And Chris G will be there. We'll have all the information on our website, thn.com/Montreal.
Taking a look at the Trois-Rivières, if we want to move down one level, they've had a pretty good start to their season. Last Saturday on October the 28th, the Trois-Rivières came away with a 4-3 shootout win. The very next day, it was a back-to-back, and they lost 7-6, and then a few days off in between before November the 3rd, when Trois-Rivières got back in the winning column with a 4-1 win. Trois-Rivières' record at the moment, 5-1-0-0. Matthew Boucher had a hat trick this past week, and this Joe Verbetic guy, he's looking pretty good. I wonder if he might get a call up, as I think Laval could use another good goaltender.
Yeah, Verbetic's been great, and Trois-Rivières has been great. And to see all the fuss, I mentioned Chris G will be in Laval on Saturday night. On Sunday afternoon, Chris heads to Trois-Rivières. And he'll be taking in that game from the press box.
Recently, we started up a brand new website for the hockey news, THNQMJHL, and Rick, we're starting to get some content on there.
Lots of content there for our fans who love Quebec hockey, love the QMJHL, the folks from the Maritimes, and a couple of articles that went up this week that I thought were interesting. Amy talked about the team of the week in the Q, and Jeremy talked about success on and off the ice for the St. John Sea Dogs. And interesting, some quotes there from the owner, recognizing that they're in a rebuild and recognizing that they may have to do a little bit more to bring in fans. Fascinating article by Jeremy, and you should go to thn.com/QMJHL to check them out.
So if you're looking for content on Canadiens prospects, you head over to thn.com/Montreal. You can find all that content right there. And if you're looking to find the best English language coverage of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, head over to thn.com/QMJHL. And now we'll get to our quotes of the week, and it's just one quote coming from Nick Bovrov. So in August of 2022, the Montreal Canadiens released a behind-the-scenes video titled Inside the Canadiens Draft Meetings, and he gives his closing argument on why the Montreal Canadiens drafted Juraj Slafkovsky with that first overall pick.
At what age? To be at the World Championship at the age of 16 is unprecedented. No one has done that, even in the 80s and the 70s. And obviously what he's done on the big stages this year is also pretty much unprecedented. He just has that personality to want to take the bulls by the horn. He wants to own the moment, the situation. I just talked to guys who had him at the World Olympics this morning. I said, you know, you kept bumping him up the lineup. Okay, he goes to the Olympics, fourth line to the first line, because other guys were not carrying the mail. All of a sudden he ends up on that line, and that line is carrying the mail. Same thing happens at the World. So he's doing it with that drive, desire, owning the moment, and it's a personality trait. It's more than just a skill, a hockey skill. He just has that personality trait that wants to own the stage. And I think he has proven that to the world of hockey, that he is not a one-hit wonder, okay, that he's repeating those performances. We saw him at TPS in the playoffs. He was excellent. And he just kept getting better and better and better. Every month, every shift, every tournament. Lastly, a country of 5 million has been talking about this kid for, 3 years now? Yep. 4 years now? The pressure on him is a country. And so far, he's handled it unbelievably well. So to gauge how the kid can handle pressure, I think there's evidence, and the proof is in the pudding, not only through the tournaments, but through this period of time of maybe 2.5 years, 3 years, where he's been the next one. And he kept getting better while under pressure of that 5 million population.
All right. Very dramatic. The music added by the Montreal Canadiens for their presentation to give you a look inside the draft discussions. It's an important point to make, and that is that Nick Bobrov is speaking to the members of hockey ops, the scouts, Gorton, Hughes. They're there to make a choice for the first overall pick, and Bobrov is delivering the closing argument. I think we might have missed the opening to this, but I'm just going to play that opening again.
Hockey historians are paying attention to what this guy managed to achieve.
Hockey historians are noting this. They're following this guy. This has never happened before, he said. That hockey historians are going to write the story of this amazing player. Does any of what he said fit with what we see on the ice right now? So I think, why are we playing this? Because it was, a year ago, a whole year ago. It's important to remind ourselves the things that were said to convince the Montreal Canadiens to make this leap, to take Juraj Slafkovsky. Bobrov said that, first, the hockey historians thing. Also, that it didn't take him long, and he was being bumped up the lineup from the third line to the second line to the top line because he was carrying the mail. He was driving, he was making his teammates better. He was the one driving the performance on the line. Because I know I've heard some criticism from Canadiens fans saying, put him with somebody better and maybe he'll be better. No, Bobrov's said he can do that on his own. He's the one that will drive the performance on the line. He said that he always gets better. Every game he gets better. Every shift he gets better. I don't think we've seen that either. So again, we're looking at a full picture to make decisions about Juraj Slafkovsky, and lots of times we get drawn into the moment and have that micro focus. And it's myopic. We're not seeing the bigger picture, and part of the bigger picture is how he came to the Montreal Canadiens in the first place.
So we'll continue discussions about Juraj Slafkovsky heading into our next segment there. We'll do a full analysis on that. For now, we'll take a look at our hockey news from around the league, and the good and the bad and the ugly from Michael Andlauer of the Ottawa Senators, a brand new owner. Starting off with the good, he sold his 10% share of the Montreal Canadiens. We knew that he was a partial shareholder owner before he bought the Ottawa Senators, and the Habs are currently valued at $2.5 billion, so he got a good payday.
He got 10% would be $250 million towards that $950 purchase price. So that's helpful. But I think so what does it mean to the Montreal Canadiens? They're valued at $2.5 billion. We'll probably have a Sportico or a Forbes rating out soon to see exactly where it is. But based on the valuation, $2.5 billion is great for the Montreal Canadiens, keeping in mind that Molson bought back the team from George Gillette for $575 thereabouts. So it's appreciated a whole lot since 2009.
Absolutely, and we'll take a look at the bad for Michael Andlauer. He's going to continue to be a theme here. The NHL announced that the Ottawa Senators must forfeit a future first-round pick over the next 3 seasons. They'll have 24 hours after the draft lottery to decide whether or not that's the pick that they want to forfeit, and it has to be one of them within the next 3 seasons. They get the choice. So remember, like 3 years ago, there was that thing about Evgeny Dadonov being traded to the Anaheim Ducks at the trade deadline, and then that got vetoed due to a no-trade list. Well, the NHL came back around 3 years later, and decided that the Ottawa Senators were negligent in a trade that sent Evgeny Dadonov to the Vegas Golden Knights to begin with the offseason beforehand. The trade was Dadonov to Vegas in exchange for Nick Holden and a third-round pick that came to Ottawa. And, it said that Ottawa did not inform Vegas of this 10-team no-trade list that Evgeny Dadonov had. And as to why this came back 3 years later, well, it's reported that Vegas was feeling a little bit fragile about how they've been treating their players lately. Of course, they've been letting go a lot of players. They've not hesitated to move on from certain guys, so they wanted to clear up their reputation a little bit. This was one way to do so, and for the Ottawa Senators and Michael Andlauer. Andlauer said that he was unaware that this was an investigation that was happening, and about a week ago he received a disturbing phone call from the NHL in regards to this. I think we all knew previous ownership probably had a few skeletons in the closet. This is the first one to be revealed, and it's a big deal. A first-round draft pick for a team that hasn't made the playoffs in a while. This is pretty unfortunate for new owner Michael Andlauer.
Really unfortunate. And listen, the NHL has to take part of the blame here as well. How many teams has Dadonov played for since the Ottawa Senators? Vegas, almost Anaheim, the Canadiens, and the Dallas Stars. For them to delay, and it's obvious that the NHL delayed their ruling until the final sale went through. Andlauer said he asked about it and said there was nothing of consequence was going to come out of that. And he said a first-round pick is a big consequence. So the NHL, I think, misrepresented to the sellers the degree of what could happen here. And shame on them for letting 3 years go by before they made a ruling.
Absolutely. I remember when this went down, I was wondering if punishment was going to come through, but that seemed to just be swept under the rug until recently when it just randomly came back up. And this first-round pick, I think I might not be exaggerating to say that this could end up costing Andlauer a few $1 million losing this first-round pick, no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was the reason speculated that the NHL kept this hidden to the price for the Ottawa Senators was a record price, $950 million. How much would it have been had this information, had the ruling come down ahead of time?
Absolutely. And as a result, the Ottawa Senators have parted ways with GM Pierre Dorion due to that whole scandal. This was reportedly the last straw for GMPD. Andlauer said in his press conference that he liked the idea of having kind of a two-headed front office with Steve Staios as president of hockey operations and keeping on GMPD. But unfortunately, that's been short-lived. Steve Staios is going to act as the interim GM as well. So a bit of an up-and-down week for Michael Andlauer, perhaps coming back down to earth. Some struggles out of the gate for the Senators. 3 right side D are injured. 2 centers are injured. 41-game suspension for Shane Pinto. And Andlauer, during his press conference, really vocalized how unhappy he was with the NHL this past week.
He's going to be a very different owner. He knows hockey inside and out, and he's not afraid to say things that typically the typical owner hasn't said in the past. I think he's going to shake up things and probably for the good. As far as Pierre Dorion, yeah, his time was up in the preseason poll done by the Hockey News. The Hockey News reached out to all of the editors of their team sites, myself being one, and I had said Pierre Dorion would be the first GM fired. The writing seemed to be on the wall with Steve Staios coming in, and if it wasn't for this reason, there would be another. And just some good moves, some bad, but this was something that was unforgivable, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the type of situation where it comes out. And I think GMs around the league would just not trust Pierre Dorion whatsoever. Yes. So you had to get rid of him at that point. Some were speculating after the Andlauer press conference that he might actually receive a fine for some of the things he was saying, being a little bit too honest. But some on Twitter, Frank Saravelli, Darren Dreger, clarified that Michael Andlauer would not be receiving a fine, and this could be due to the previous penalty maybe just being enough to cover that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So ending the segment on a bit of a tougher note, Nottingham Panthers have created a memorial jersey to honor Adam Johnson, who died on October the 28th from injuries sustained from a skate laceration on his neck. So the NHL this past week, there were some tributes being played at the beginning of the game, so that was nice to see. And in several different leagues, neck guards have become mandatory.
Yeah, first of all, just terrible news as we followed this, and just an awful accident. And condolences to the family of and friends of Adam Johnson and teammates. Hopefully some good will come of this, and that memorial jersey that they're creating in Nottingham, that will be certainly a keepsake and a way to generate funds for the family. And if some equipment changes can happen, the net guards, some of the junior leagues have already mandated them. The EIHL, the league that Johnson played in, has mandated them. And some teams, like the Pittsburgh Penguins, have said they're going to be used by the Penguins and all our affiliates AHL and the ECHL. We notice that many NHLers have tried them. I saw Rasmus Dahlin tried one, kind of took it off midway through the game. There isn't much choice at this point. It's something that equipment manufacturers, if there is a demand, that equipment manufacturers have to get on, and there's a million different choices for gloves, helmets, sticks. Not many choices for neck guards. That has to change. I'll just add that I can't believe that goaltenders don't wear more protection for their neck. The long masks sometimes cover, but goaltenders, the way they twist, turn, try to make a save, that area can be exposed. We remember the tie-on from Patrick Waugh, or the flaps from Hasek or Chris Osgood on the cages. Much more has to be done there for goaltenders. And I'll take it one step further. Skates are incredibly sharp these days, even more so. There has to be more done, not only with neck protection, but cut-resistant wrist guards, which are rarely used. Cut-resistant socks are more used in the NHL, but I really want to see the NHLPA get on board. NHL have been traditionally lagging on issues of player safety, lagging on concussions. They've been against mandates. I want to see them get on board, because the NHL can't mandate any of this stuff on their own. They need the cooperation of the NHLPA, and I'd really like to see them work together to make it much safer for players in all leagues.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great point. But we do wish Adam Johnson's family and friends thoughts and prayers towards them. This is unfortunate that's how that went, and we'll leave her at that. So coming up, we'll hear a message from our sponsors, DraftKings, and then we'll get to our big topic segment. It's all about Slaf versus Cooley. Stay with us. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
We are back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw $5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action, so download the app now and sign up with code THPN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, KS. Licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, LA. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. My name is Michael Spinella. You can find me on Twitter at the Spinella. With me in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at Rocket Sports. You can also follow this podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Habs Connection. Also check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. And just a reminder off the top here to subscribe to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on your favorite podcasting app. However you want to listen to it, hit that subscribe button and never miss a single episode. As I said, this is going to be the Juraj Slafkovsky versus Logan Cooley segment. On Thursday night, the Montreal Canadiens met the Arizona Coyotes in a game in which the Arizona Coyotes did win. And for the first time, the first overall pick from 2022 faced off against Logan Cooley. And, well, Juraj Slafkovsky didn't come away with any points, but Logan Cooley got an assist. Cooley's actually off to a great start this season. He had 8 points. He's got 8 points as a rookie in just 10 games, whereas Slafkovsky so far this season just 1 assist and 11 points through 49 NHL games through parts of 2 seasons. So a bit of a difference between the two. And well, Marty St. Louis, he's known for that magic wand. It worked on Doc. It's worked on Caulfield. Why is it not working on Slafkovsky? What's going on with that, Rick?
It's and why are we talking about Cooley or other players? The choice has been made. The Canadiens chose Slafkovsky. So some, as I said earlier, would like to tunnel vision, just focus on him. I think it's to put it into context that development paths can be done differently. The Canadiens chose to put to bring Juraj Slafkovsky into the NHL right away last season, and then hope that everything would work out this season. There's been up till now no consideration of him going into returning to his team in Finland. I don't think the Canadiens were very happy with the way he was used in Finland, so that probably wasn't a consideration at all, but no consideration to him going to Laval. And Laval has its own issues and its own coaching issues and whatnot, but Juraj Slafkovsky has looked like, as Craig Button says, a fish out of water, just that he's been thrown in the deep end, he's treading water, and he doesn't look like an NHL player. And so, you know, a lot of people are saying, just leave him alone. That's normal. That's the way it has to be. And I think if you take a quick look around, and Logan Cooley was the player this week to take a look at, because it was obvious that there would be a comparison between these two players by fans, by media. Do you doubt that the players themselves know that they wanted, that Juraj Slafkovsky wanted to do better than Logan Cooley in that game? Logan Cooley wanted to do better than Juraj Slafkovsky. How do we know that? Well, Bill Armstrong, the general manager of the Arizona Coyotes, said all players do that, and certainly that would be happening between those two players. So I think. Yeah, we're not saying, you know, that Juraj Slafkovsky is a bust, but neither are we saying that we should just leave him alone and not have any comments, because Canadiens fans have lots of comments. The media has had a lot of comments, and it's more than just a Montreal issue. This has percolated into conversations across the NHL.
And well, on draft day, too, when Slafkovsky was selected first overall, it was definitely not a slam dunk. On this clip that we're going to play here, you'll hear the reaction was very mixed from the crowds, even at that point in time.
With our first pick in the 2022 NHL draft, les Canadiens de Montréal sont fiers de repêcher from the Slovakian national team and TPS Turku, Juraj Slafkovsky.
So you were there in the Bell Center. Tell us how that felt, because I don't think I've ever heard that kind of reaction to a first round pick before. That it was very mixed. That there was shock in there. There were certainly boos in there. That wasn't blowing the roof off the Bell Center like happened when Louis LeBlanc, forget how that turned out, but there was universal embracement there. That was a really odd reaction for announcing the first overall pick.
Well, to set the tone, too, leading up to that, everyone was chanting Shane, meaning Shane Wright. So this was very unexpected. I think there was kind of a confused reaction, and there was also a lot of booing. Unfortunately, that recording does not do justice to the amount of booing that was going on. And this was not booing Slafkovsky himself. I think this was more directed towards the GM and the Montreal Canadiens, because this was not necessarily the most popular pick, of course. Later during the draft, they reintroduced Slafkovsky, and there were a lot of cheers, so fans did come around on him. I know fans do want him to succeed. Fans do want him to do well, but this was not a slam dunk of a pick by the Montreal Canadiens with that first overall. And
why is that important? It's important because it said something about that. Okay, we're skeptical about this. So prove it to us. We want this guy to be successful. He's chosen now, so prove it to us. Make him successful. We remember the bad development of the previous regime. Develop him better. All of those, again, this is not to relitigate that pick at all. This is just to put everything into context about the reaction, the choices that were available, the choices that were made, and what has happened since.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I think there was a little bit of confusion going into last season whether or not Slafkovsky was going to go directly into the NHL. I think it was a little bit of a surprise to at least me. I know in some cases fans, looked at the situation, said, you know what, this is a first overall pick. Of course, he can go directly into the NHL. Throughout that preseason and throughout last season, I don't think it looked great. And we're seeing a lot more this season. In the preseason this year, I will give Slafkovsky credit. He started to look a little bit more confident. He started to have a little bit more poise. But that was the preseason. As we start this NHL season, 1 point in 10 games, this is not doing it. So let's turn it over to Brian Hayes of TSN. Should Habs fans start being concerned about the development of Juraj Slafkovsky?
And I think if you're Montreal Canadiens fans, you have to be getting concerned here. Like, he's really, really struggling, right? He played 14 minutes in Arizona, didn't register a shot. He barely has the puck on his stick. And that is consistent with people that you talk to that are around the team every single day. He just does not feel like an NHL player. And now you're getting trolled by a team that doesn't play in an NHL rink. Yeah. Not good.
So the reference there to the trolling that the Arizona Coyotes did, which is a lesser point. But yes, he's, Brian Hayes, and I could have chosen any number of media members to make the case, but Brian Hayes says it very directly. He's struggling hard, and it wasn't just struggling in that Arizona game. He's been struggling since the start of the season. Preseason, rookie term, maybe he looked good against younger, smaller players, but he hasn't looked good at the NHL level. He hasn't scored a goal since in 11 months, December 1st, 2022. He has 1 point, he had 1 assist, a terrific assist, a tremendous assist, and we talked about that play that he made, but 1 assist since December 15th. He is really, really struggling.
Yeah, and I think us and our colleagues have been kind of beating the drum of maybe he'd benefit some time in the AHL. I know Amy Johnson, one of our Rocket Sports colleagues, have been talking about this since the beginning of this season. Well, let's hear again from Brian Hayes of TSN what his thoughts are on that.
He's not an NHL player. Yeah. Like, it's blunt. It's that easy, I think, at this point, Glenn. You cannot watch Slafkovsky and believe that he is NHL caliber right now, which means you either send him to the American Hockey League, maybe you send him back to Europe, but I think that ship is probably sailed. I think we're talking Laval here, and I think you commit 20 games, 30 games. Even if he goes down there and lights it up, that's great.
Right.
And this is always going to be a complicated issue because you're dealing with ownership that's involved with the first overall pick. The marketing department's involved. The fans are excited, clearly. But the priority of this season for Montreal, even though they've had a really good start, really, really impressive start, they're still thinking 3 years down the road, I believe. 5 years down the road. And Slafkovsky has to be a pillar of this organization with Caulfield, with Suzuki. Kirby Dach is now injured. So I think it's still about the big picture, and the big picture should include Slafkovsky playing somewhere else, because I don't think he's developing here. I don't think you can develop at the NHL level. And at this point, the stats are just getting so daunting. They're just going against him at such a poor level. Again, Arizona's trolling him. You got to wonder about his confidence at this point.
Some great points there. He talked about, this may not only be a hockey decision. Ownership would get involved. It's happened before. The marketing department would get involved. It's happened before in Montreal. He made a good point that many have been making, that the NHL is not a development league. We heard head coach Andre Tourny, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later in the segment, saying the NHL is not a development league. You're in the NHL to help your club win, and right now Juraj Slafkovsky is not contributing to the success of the team, even though, as Hayes had pointed out, they have been relatively successful and maybe surprisingly successful. Should he have been, you mentioned about Amy Johnson, and if you haven't seen it, go to the YouTube channel and check out her video and making the case about Juraj Slafkovsky in the AHL. But there's Craig Button, who is the prospects expert for TSN. Quote, I don't think he and he's talking about Slafkovsky, I don't think he should have been in the NHL last year, and I don't think he should be in the NHL this year. He's not ready for the league. He's not ready to perform in the league. He's not able to impact the game. Nothing negative about it, just reality. Forget about him having success. He's in the middle of deep water just trying to hang on. And then goes on to say, this is on the Montreal Canadiens, not Juraj Slafkovsky. Quote, NHL teams fail players way more than players fail on their own. The Montreal Canadiens have not set up Juraj for success. He's a day late and a dollar short everywhere. So the idea he can somehow develop in the NHL is puzzling, to say the least. They're failing him. It's a lesson that somehow has not been learned.
Very blunt, but I think quite accurate, to be completely honest. Slafkovsky, some people say that, he's just down on his confidence. As soon as he scores his first goal of the season, it'll be fine. Well, this is not a player that's snake bitten. It's not like he's getting a ton of chances and just failing to convert. This isn't a player that's necessarily found a role on this team in the NHL. Slafkovsky right now, his skating is not great. He doesn't follow the play very well. He has some moments where he looks good. We talked about the one assist. It was a great assist. Lots of patience. He certainly has a certain degree of hockey IQ. It's just not developing, and the NHL is too fast for him to follow. So I am on the camp of he should be sent down to Laval for a while. I know a lot of our listeners might hear that, and they listen to Rick and I talk quite a bit and think, well, you know what, Laval, they've not been doing development very well. You've talked about JF Fool not wanting to play the prospects. Well, you know what, that's a different issue, and if they're serious about the development of all their prospects, if they're serious about the development of Juraj Slafkovsky, then what's more important? What an AHL coach on an expiring contract wants to do, or the development of your first overall pick? Management can figure this out. Someone can go down there and say, you know what, he needs to play this amount of time. He needs to do this, whatever. If coaching doesn't like it, again, what's more important? AHL coach on an expiring contract or your first overall pick? So I really think Montreal is headed in a bad direction with Juraj Slafkovsky. We see it on the ice. You can't tell me that you've watched him and been impressed with what you've seen so far. And there's still time to fix this, though. He's still a young player. There's still a lot of things that they can do to put his development back on track. Apologies for the tangent there, but I'll send it back to you, Rick.
Just to piggyback on what you said there, JF Fool has said that development is going to happen by itself automatically in a winning environment. Put a winning team on and development will happen. He also has said that development happens in practice. He has no time for it during the game. It happens when the development team comes in. So Jeff Wool is not doing a very good job developing Riley Kidney and Sean Farrell. In the eyes of Kent Hughes and Gordon, do you think that there's a difference between developing Slafkovsky and a Riley Kidney or Sean? No disrespect to the other prospects that are in Laval, but do you think that they would demand the development happens? Do you think that they would demand that he is put in a good situation in Laval? Do you think that they would absolutely send Adam Nicholas there and the rest of the development team to be working with him like this week? What a perfect opportunity it would be for Juraj Slafkovsky to be in Laval when it's nothing but practices, because they don't play this week. It would be ideal. So yes, there are serious problems in Laval, and maybe just maybe that is a reason why they haven't sent him to Laval already, because his performance last year and this year certainly would have dictated that he go to the AHL. But they have a way of bringing the hammer down, so to speak. Listen, I think it's clear that all the things, we heard what Nick Bobrov said. We heard the European scouts, Rockstar and others say size, size, size. That's why we're drafting him. The analytics guys said size. Jeff Gorton and Hughes said we got him for size. We got him for potential. Bobrov also talked about his charisma and how he loves the big stage and had the personality to handle the pressure in Montreal. But whether it's the external pressure or the internal pressure, he's not handling it. He looks absolutely, for the most part, lost at times. Lost in the D zone. He has no chemistry with his line mates. Size is unimportant if you don't use it. He's not being physical. He's not winning puck battles. He's not engaged. His mechanics are off. Even when he goes to shoot the puck, it's all over the place because his feet are not properly set. And the speed of the game is just baffling him. Both the physical speed and keeping up, but also the processing. He's just not processing the game at speed. He's not being successful, and putting him out there shift after shift after shift only makes him look more helpless. And again, back to the defensive zone. He cruises around. A guy with that kind of size and the long stick could be a disruptor, could be a puck retriever in his own zone, and we haven't seen that at all. He's just not the player who was promised, and I think he's not the player that he sees himself as, and it's got to be a disappointment for him. We know that he's focused on getting a goal. Jeff Gorton said that they got to distract him and tell him that stats aren't the most important thing right now. He needs a goal for his confidence, but a goal is not going to fix everything either, because there's far more problems, particularly his mechanics, that are preventing him from looking like the player that we all hoped he would be.
Yeah, and of course, to be fair, is today the day that we expected Slafkovsky to become the player he was projected to be? Probably not, but I think he's way behind what we were expecting him to be in his second full NHL season. And like you said, it's not just a matter of, okay, let's just get him a goal and then he'll be fine. The mechanics are off. Just something's not clicking with him at this level. And the NHL, it's just too fast for him at this point, and it's going to be difficult to develop him that way. So we do have a special guest waiting to get into the studio. But Rick, did you have any final points before we want to welcome him in?
Well, I think the main point here is that we all want Juraj Slafkovsky to be successful. He's not being successful right now, and something needs to change to make that happen. It isn't just going to happen on its own. And, if the hockey world is comparing him to other players, that Juraj Slafkovsky, in his mind, is doing that as well.
Absolutely. And without further ado, we do have a special guest, Remy Mastey, site editor for the Hockey News Arizona, and I'll send it off to you guys. Thanks,
Michael. Well, I'm thrilled today to be able to welcome to the Canadiens Connection for the very first time a colleague of mine with the Hockey News. He's the site editor for the Arizona Coyotes, thn.com/Arizona. His name is Remy Mastey. He does a great job. And welcome to the Canadiens Connection.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, listen, I thought it was the perfect time because everybody in the world, it seems, especially on social media, is talking about Juraj Slafkovsky and Logan Cooley, picked first and third, as everybody knows, at the 2022 NHL entry draft. And this week, there was the opportunity to see them both in the same place, in the same ice, as the Canadiens were in Arizona at Mullet Arena on Thursday night. And you were there, Remy, at Mullet Arena with almost 5,000 both Coyotes and Canadiens fans. There's a lot of Canadiens jerseys in the building.
There were a lot.
But before we get to that, let's just find out and let our listeners know who you are. As I said, you're the site editor for the Arizona Coyotes on the Hockey News. You're a budding journalist. You're pursuing your degree in sports journalism at ASU, and tell me a bit about how you got into journalism, how you got interested in this, how's the program going, and what's it like writing for the Hockey News?
Yeah, of course. Growing up, I loved hockey. Hockey was my favorite sport. And my family is actually from Montreal, so I grew up watching a lot of Habs games, a lot of disappointing playoffs for the Canadiens, but nonetheless, I grew up idolizing all these great players on the Canadiens and great players in the NHL, and I always knew I wanted to get into sports somewhere, and just decided I think that journalism is a good place to start, and I just really have loved my time here at ASU, love covering all different sports, and now recently covering the Coyotes has really been a dream come true so far.
Well, that's great. You said your family, your parents from Montreal, you grew up in the New York area, and you were telling me before the show that some of your favorite players, Brendan Gallagher, Andrei Markov, Alex Galchenyuk. What was it like to be covering the game last night and to see one of your heroes in the lineup, Brendan Gallagher?
Yeah, it was definitely a surreal experience for me. I've been to some Canadiens games as a fan, so being able to cover it was definitely really cool. It was interesting covering the game because obviously I was covering it as a Coyotes writer. So just watching the Canadiens, but really focusing on the Coyotes was definitely an odd but cool experience as well.
And as we know, it was the Coyotes that came out on top 3-2, a game that kind of went back and forth a bit. Not the most exciting, dynamic game, as it were, but in addition to maybe watching Brendan Gallagher or keeping an eye on him at the very least, you also had an opportunity to see up close Juraj Slafkovsky, and before we get into a bit of the comparisons, just any general thoughts on seeing Slafkovsky last night?
Yeah, it's been something that I've kind of been thinking about a lot over the past year since seeing Slafkovsky last year, and it's a little bit disappointing sometimes to see just he's not truly adapting to that NHL level. He's not the greatest skater. He looks a little bit lost sometimes, makes some mistakes, a lot of turnovers. And I think that he has a long way to go. He is a young player, but I think that maybe the Canadiens should have been a little bit more patient with him. That's just my opinion.
Well, it's an opinion shared by a lot of fans. The predominant opinion you see on social media is that he should be maybe in Laval in the AHL, and we'll see if that's in his future as it is. But as you said, you were there covering the Coyotes, expert on the Arizona Coyotes, and from that draft is Logan Cooley. So maybe if we can spend a few minutes talking about Cooley, he had quite a different path, a journey since that 2022 draft. And I got to see him a little bit last year when he was with the University of Minnesota, the Golden Gophers. And for me, at times he was just incredible, a dynamic player on the ice. Obviously, the Golden Gophers were a terrific team. He had a great season with them, but you saw at times he was he showed his youth. He was very emotional. He would show his frustration. He would take a bad penalty, and then he'd come and turn it around and just be incredible on the ice. So talk about his development. Very different from that of Slafkovsky, and how the Arizona Coyotes have been a little bit more patient with him.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach that they had compared to the Canadiens. I think that maybe he could have been ready last year, but instead they took a patient approach and let him play college, play at the University of Minnesota, and he really thrived there. He was in the Hobie Baker conversation. He scored 22 goals, 38 assists, 60 points, and led his team all the way to the national championship. So he, I think, made a lot of strides last year. And instead of rushing him, I think it was the right move to leave him playing college hockey last year, because he looks very comfortable now. And obviously he's had some growing pains, but that's normal for a rookie. And I think that the Coyotes definitely made the right move.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Not only did he get to play in the NCAA with University of Minnesota, but he got to play on the World Junior team. And Andre Tourny, head coach of the Arizona Coyotes, hometown from Trois-Rivières, and we know him from coaching in the Q, coaching the Huskies, coaching the 67s. He knows about coaching young players. On Thursday, he said that one of the important parts of Cooley's development was the fact that he got to play in 2 championship matches, one in a final for the NCAA, and also playing in the final of the World Juniors. And he said, at that point, it doesn't matter whether you win those or lose those. It's just an extraordinary experience. What do you think about that insight from Andre Tourny?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point by Tourny, who's also been great in helping Cooley develop. And obviously he's played in 2 championship games. And while it's not the Stanley Cup by any means, it's still very important to get that experience, as you said. And now he has that under his belt, and he knows how to deal with pressure. So yeah, I do think it's pretty good.
So he had a terrific season at the University of Minnesota. He got to experience the World Juniors, and then he came to training camp this year, and of course all eyes on him. There was, I remember in the offseason, there was a bit of confusion. He kind of signaled that he was going back to Minnesota, and then no, he was coming to.
It was a little bit confusing.
Yeah, to the Coyotes, but it seems like a good decision. And tell us about his training camp. I think everybody saw his goal in the preseason in Australia, which was unbelievable. But talk about his whole training camp experience and how he looked there.
Yeah, obviously, like going into training camp, there were a lot of expectations on him. And then once he scored that goal in Australia, those expectations just rose up a lot. And I think that everyone around the NHL world really noticed him. But overall, he looked strong. He played with most of training camp with Jason Zucker. And what was interesting to me about training camp is that he really was going under Jason Zucker's wing, and Zucker was really helping him grow, which I think was great for Logan Cooley. Obviously, Zucker's injured now, but I think that he helped him a lot during training camp. But yeah, overall, he did look like he had a strong training camp. And honestly, what Tierney said yesterday or on Thursday before the game, which was interesting, is that at certain times he said that Cooley looked like the best player on the ice despite being a rookie during training camp.
Well, he's done in his first 10 games in the NHL. He's got 8 points, a goal, and 7 assists. He got his first NHL career goal against Anaheim the other night, and that one maybe not as spectacular as the preseason goal, but in its own right, it showed his the way he using his edges, going to the net, fending off the defender with his leg. I thought it was a great introductory goal to the NHL.
Yeah, it was a great goal. He, again, showing his speed and just getting the puck. He just kind of lifted the puck a little bit, just shows his touch as well. And I think another great aspect of Logan Cooley has been his playmaking. Obviously, he got the assist on the game-winning goal against the Canadiens, and he has all these assists. And just, I think his playmaking is something that people should more take a look at. A lot of people talked about his scoring, like obviously before he was drafted, but his playmaking is something that's also pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think you're right. On Thursday, when Andre Tourny addressed the media, he kind of raised the eyebrows of, and there's quite a few Montreal media there, but he raised the eyebrows of the Montreal media. And whether this was intended or not, I don't know. But let me read his quote. He said, quote, "The NHL is not a development league. You play in the NHL because you're able to help your club win. It's a performance league. It's a professional league. People pay to come to see players." He went on to say, "There are leagues for development. I've coached in those leagues. They're great leagues. And this is where you can do trial and error, but not in the NHL." And I thought that was interesting because, the argument has been made that the Canadiens would like to develop Juraj Slafkovsky in the NHL. And Tourny was saying, you better be well along that path. He said you can improve, but as far as development, you better be ready to play at the NHL level. What did you think of his comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think he raises a good point, and obviously actions speak louder than words. And in last week's game against the Kings, Cooley was actually benched for a lot of the third period just because Tierney felt like he made some mistakes, and he felt like he needs to have that sort of growing lesson. And I think that's really helped Logan Cooley, and I think that Cooley is prepared, and that's why they obviously let him play in the NCAA last year, just so he could get that development and he could be ready for this year. And I think that he raises a great point, and Tierney has been great for Cooley development-wise. Well,
I thought it was the other thing that I thought was fascinating is Tierney admitted that, as you would with a young player, that you protected his matchups early in the season. He said, at the beginning of the year, I was careful who I pitted him against, but now I don't care about that anymore. It doesn't matter. I thought that was fascinating, and the coach showing his confidence in a young player to go up against any of the other lines of the opposition.
Yeah, I think that Tierney over time has really grown a lot of trust in Cooley. Cooley is playing the first wave of the power play, and he's playing about 16.5 minutes per game, which compared to Slafkovsky, I think Slafkovsky is playing, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, about 14 minutes, maybe 14.5 minutes. So I think that Cooley has been playing a big role for the Coyotes, which is surprising, obviously, for a rookie. And Tierney has really grown trust in him, which is good.
Well, you talk about ice time, and one of the things that I was fascinated by last night was the 5-on-5 play. And let me see, for Logan Cooley, it was 9:28 5-on-5, 9 minutes 28 seconds. For Slafkovsky, it was 9:34. So they're within 6 seconds of each other. And the big difference is the shot share that that third line of the Canadiens just got steamrolled last night. Let me just see here, four shots, 4-12 against, and it was much more even for the line Cooley was on. And it was interesting because Cooley was, Coyotes played 7 defensemen on Thursday night, and Cooley was kind of that extra forward that slotted in whenever. And he certainly got some special teams time as well. But 5-on-5, he had much better success than Slafkovsky.
Yeah, I think that it's just that Cooley's game right now, I think it just plays better to a 5-on-5 setting. Cooley is a little bit of a better playmaker. He is a faster skater, and I think that he has that offensive touch. Obviously, Slafkovsky has that sort of potential, just like with his size and what he showed before getting into the NHL, but I think that right now, Cooley's game just translates better, which is why I think he's been more successful. Well,
I couldn't agree with you more. Listen, Remy, this has been terrific. Great information, great insight. I don't expect that these comparisons are going to end anytime soon. So hopefully we can have you back once again. But listen, if our audience wants to follow you and follow your work, at the Hockey News, let's tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, just obviously go to the main Hockey News page. There's a site for all for the team sites, but the main site is thehockeynews.com/NHL/Arizona-Coyotes.
That's great, and they can find you on Twitter at Mastey Remy. And again, I hope to have you back, and we really appreciate all your great information today.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. I appreciate you for getting me on here.
What a great interview. Thank you very much to Remy for coming in and talking to us. Love hearing the perspective from the Arizona Coyotes, hearing a little bit more about Logan Cooley and Rick. Great interview. Great job.
Thank you. And great job by Remy coming in and giving us a perspective. We talked about the journey that Logan Cooley's been on. A development path is different for could be different for every player. But the development path that Arizona has chosen, and listen, it's difficult to learn to say lessons need to be learned from Arizona because they haven't done many things right. But it appears that they're doing the right thing or they've done the right thing with Logan Cooley. When we talked about it, and this goes back to prior to the 2022 entry draft. For us, Canadiens Connection episode 196, you can listen to it. It is titled "Right, Cooley or Slafkovsky," and that came out June 18th, 2022. And special guest was Sam Cosentino, and he went through the strengths of each of those players, and talked about the strengths of Slafkovsky, and we haven't seen those translate yet. He talked about Logan Cooley being the dynamic player that he is, using his speed and skill. He's ultra competitive. He plays with a bit of an edge. And we've seen all of that, or parts of that, not consistently, but we've seen glimpses of that in Cooley's game. So the question is, is that determined by the player themselves? Is it determined by the organization? Is it determined by the path that they've been on? And those are things that we can't sit in our bubble in Montreal and say everything's fine. It'll happen automatically, especially when players who are in that category are developing and growing and adapting to the NHL.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you were kind of hinting at there, Logan Cooley, I think some people were surprised to see him go ahead of Shane Wright. But there were some scouts out there that actually had Logan Cooley ranked at number 1 during that draft, ahead of both Slafkovsky and Shane Wright. So he's a great prospect. He's a great player that I liked quite a bit. That's not going against Slafkovsky whatsoever, but this is going to lead pretty well into our Canadiens Connection question of the week. But it's all about development, and you listed off a few factors that can go into it. And our question to our listeners is, how would you handle Slafkovsky's development going forward? We want to make sure that we hear from you. And with that, it's time to take our final break. Stay with us. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Have you started noticing how many holiday and Christmas commercials are already popping up on your television screens? Well, listen, it may be too early to start decorating for the holidays, but it's never too early to start your holiday shopping. So why not take care of it now before the crowds and packed calendars make shopping a total nightmare, especially when you can get some of the best deals of the season well before Black Friday. Hey, guess what? You can shop Raycon products right now and save up to 50% off because their early Black Friday sale is going on right now. Now, you've heard me talk about Raycon's products before, right? Their everyday earbuds are a product that I use all the time. They've got great sound. They've got one-touch environmental settings on the earbuds themselves. They fit so comfortably inside my ear, and their connectivity is always seamless. They are absolutely tremendous. Raycon first made a name for themselves in the audio space with products like those everyday earbuds, which of course are known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features like a 32-hour battery life and that perfect in-ear fit that I talked about. That gives you all-day wear and lasting comfort. And did you know that this past year, they expanded their entire business with the introduction of Raycon Home and Raycon PowerTech? So what is that? Well, check this out. Their 5-star reviewed Magic 180 cable allows you to charge iOS, micro USB, and Type-C devices 8 times faster with 100-watt power delivery. Looking for something that's not electronics related? Well, guess what? Their faucet filter ultra filters the water in your tap against chlorine and heavy metals. It's a must-have for ensuring the water you use to wash your face and brush your teeth is, actually clean. Raycon's known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features at half the price of other premium tech brands. So it's no wonder their products have racked up tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. So, to get everyone in the holiday shopping spirit a little bit early, Raycon is offering currently 20% off everything on their site, with select products up to 50% off. So, beat the crowds and save now. Trust me, you do not want to miss out on Raycon's early Black Friday sale. So hurry now to buyraycon.com/THPN to get 20 to 50% off site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/THPN to score up to 50% off Raycon products. buyraycon.com/THPN.
Welcome back to episode 268 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. You can follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. And as we like to interact with all of our listeners and hear your thoughts, feel free to text us anytime via the Rocket Sports text line, 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. Appreciated that interview from Remy in that second segment. I think that Slafkovsky has been a pretty hot topic around the Montreal Canadiens and around the league this past week. So, of course, it was nice to get that discussion in there and a little bit about Logan Cooley as well. So I think job well done on that interview there, Rick.
Well, it's an important topic. It's lots of people are talking about it, so we wanted to make sure to bring in the folks who know best, and great interview with Remy.
And we like to keep all of our listeners and viewers up to date on everything the Montreal Canadiens. So you can find all of our Canadiens coverage in one place. Just head over to thn.com/Montreal. We have plenty of game day content, headlines, notepads, prospects, anything that you need to know about the Montreal Canadiens. Just head over to thn.com/Montreal. Also, we're on YouTube. If you want to subscribe to us, just search @AllHabs and you can pull up our page there. Smash the subscribe button. Throughout the week, you'll find several different shows. First and foremost, hosted by Amy Johnson, it's the Habs Hockey Report Show. The most recent episode is entitled Habs Prospect Joshua Waugh Comes Up Big. Also, throughout the week, she has a second show. This one focuses more on the prospects, called the Rocket Hockey Report Show, and this one's entitled These Things Need to Improve Quickly for the Laval Rocket. Amy is a great host. She's very informed and in tune with everything Montreal Canadiens and Laval Rocket, so hit that like button if you like what you saw. Leave a comment, get engaged in the conversation. And also, this podcast is going to be put on YouTube as well. The Canadiens Connection podcast. Our most recent episode before this one was entitled Habs Mailbag. Could the Canadiens make the playoffs? So head over to that YouTube, watch all of our content throughout the week. Hit the subscribe button. Never miss a single episode. And coming up this week, we have a pretty big announcement on the Hockey Pod Network's YouTube. We're going to be doing a live stream for the Montreal Canadiens versus Tampa Bay Lightning on November the 7th. It's going to be hosted by myself, Michael Spinella, along with my Rocket Sports media colleague, Nathan, who helps us handle a lot of our social media stuff. So if you want to tune in and watch the game with us, we'd be more than happy to have you along. Just head over to the Hockey Podcast Network's YouTube page on November the 7th. We'll also be posting about this on our social media. So look out for that. Tune in, watch the game with us, and let us know your comments along the way.
That's a lot of fun. You guys did one about a week or so ago with when the Canadiens were playing New Jersey. It was a great time, and so make sure you head over to THPN. That's their YouTube channel, and watch along with Nathan and Michael.
Also, make sure you subscribe to the premier Rocket Sports podcast on your favorite podcasting app. This podcast, The Canadiens Connection. You can also find all of our episodes at canadiensconnection.fm. We come out every single Saturday throughout the year, even in the summer months when some of the other podcasts stop creating content. We continue and we never take a vacation. We are your inside link to the Montreal Canadiens. And we have a special announcement as we are in the November month. That means Movember is here, and I've started growing my mustache. I've got my page up and running. Actually, our whole Rocket Sports team has the page up and running. And Rick, what can you tell us about this?
Well, it's that time of year again for Movember, and which started as growing mustaches for to create a conversation and to talk about men's health. And this is the 10th year that we've been involved in supporting this great charity. Movember is the leading charity focused on the physical and mental health of men. You can participate, and it's easy to participate. You can make a donation. You can join our team and help us raise money, or simply raise awareness by sharing our team page on your social media. The link to find us is movember.com/rocketsports. That's easy. And then from there, you can find Michael's page. You can find my page. You can find Amy's page. And you're growing your mustache. I've started a bit of facial hair. There's also a move challenge, and I've been posting my walks and cycling on there. So if you want to get involved and do it for the men in your life that you love, reach out to us on social media, and we'll or send us an email or text us, and we'll make you part of our Rocket Sports hockey news team on Movember.
Absolutely. And as we continue to engage with all of our listeners, our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, how would you handle Slafkovsky's development going forward? We want to hear from you. Obviously, the Rocket Sports text line is a great way to get a hold of us, 5853-ROCKET. Reach out to us on social media at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. But also, we have an email that gets used quite a bit, doesn't it?
It does. It is hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. Hello@rocketsportsmedia.com.
We get tons of messages and comments throughout the week, and we have some reactions, mostly about Juraj Slafkovsky. So we'll get into those. I'll let you start off with the first one coming from Stefan in Rigaud, Quebec.
Stefan in Rigaud says, relax. All young players go through this early in their NHL careers, from Guy Lafleur to Joe Thornton to Jack Hughes. If he's still playing like this in 3 years, then we'll talk.
Yeah, that's a great point there.
I'll just say, if he's still playing like this, where he's going 30 games without a point, if he's still playing like this, he's not going to be in the NHL. He just won't, and there might be some firings that happen along the way. The mention of the other players, I think the difference there is each of those players dominated at the league prior to them coming in to the league. Juraj Slafkovsky, it's always said he played against men, but we kind of forget what those statistics look like. He did not dominate when he played in Finland. The points were scarce there too. It was in tournaments that he was successful, and it was in tournaments that we heard Bobrov reference, whether it was the Olympics or the World Championships, that's where the Canadiens saw him play on the big stage. So I think there's a difference there, and yes, we have to be patient. But it's not going to happen automatically, and so far we haven't seen any kind of progression.
For sure. We have another message coming from Antoine in Gatineau, Quebec, and Antoine says, for Habs fans, how successful were you at the age of 19? And thanks for making me cry, Antoine. Unfortunately, no one was willing to give me the same amount of money that Slafkovsky was making. Fair point, I guess. There's no dumb questions, right? But listen, Antoine. There's 700 men in the world who play in this league. They are elite. They are elite athletes. And comparing their situations and their pathways, I would say I was really successful at age 19 in university. I was developing my craft, and maybe Juraj Slafkovsky should be developing his craft, and maybe that doesn't happen in the NHL. But nobody was going to pay me $1 million or more at age 19. So the situations are a little bit different. If they were, maybe we would also have one assist in 10 games.
Yeah.
But the next message comes from Stephen Wayburn, Saskatchewan, and I'll let you take the lead on this, Rick.
Steve says, I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet on Slaf, but something has to change. He doesn't act like he understands the opportunities he's been given. Worried about his feelings by sending him to Laval? I thought this was a kid who was mature enough to be on his own at 15 and had the perfect mental toughness to play in Montreal. Quit coddling him because you made a mistake drafting him first overall. I think that's fair. That you can't say like we heard earlier, Grant saying Canadiens fans quit hurting his feelings. Or he would take a demotion to Laval badly. You talked about one of the reasons the organization chose him is because of his personality, because of his confidence, because of his mental toughness. So you can't argue both sides out of both sides of your mouth.
Yeah, I think good message coming from Steve there. It shows that he's thought about this objectively quite a bit, and I appreciate that he put so much thought when sending that to us. Our next message comes from Alan in Port Simpson, BC, and Alan says, same two players never show up to play every game, Anderson and Slafkovsky. And I think that's fair. If I were to pick the two most inconsistent players on the Montreal Canadiens, I think those are definitely the front runners. Are they one and the same? No, I think they are quite different in their playing styles and whatnot, though.
Yeah, I think so too. There was a conversation on Twitter this morning, and it was David Stevenson at David Quebecer on Twitter with Amy Johnson. It was referring back to her should Slafkovsky be sent to Laval video, and he said a big no. Let Marty St. Louis work his magic just as he did with Caulfield. The one-on-one coaching with Slaf and St. Louis is irreplaceable. Laval isn't utopia. Laval isn't utopia. However, I think a little bit too much credit has been invested in Marty St. Louis' magic wand. It's worked sometimes. Caulfield is an example. Kirby Dach is an example. Hasn't worked other times. Couldn't work on Rem Pitlick. Couldn't work on Mike Hoffman. Couldn't work on, and listen, I agree in one sense that Marty St. Louis has made Juraj Slafkovsky his personal project. He spends more time with Juraj Slafkovsky than any other player, whether it's in practice, talking to him on the ice, whether it's the video sessions that they've set up, whether making this rule that Slafkovsky's special, I'm the only one who speaks to him. Remember, we talked about Marty's edict on that. So this is the success or failure is tied to Marty St. Louis. However, it's not just Marty St. Louis isn't a skills coach. We talked about when he joined the organization that maybe that would have been best for him to work one. He works wonders one-on-one, but he's also the head coach of a team who's playing, and that includes Juraj Slafkovsky in the lineup, and that isn't working right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I think to mention something we've brought up a few times here is Marty St. Louis is apparently the only one allowed to talk to Juraj Slafkovsky. That's correct, right?
That's what we've been told.
Our next message comes from Garth in Waterloo, Ontario. Garth says, "Great game. Vegas didn't show much of what they won the cup for what won the cup for them. But full credit to the Habs, outplayed them all night. Only one sour note. Juraj Slafkovsky still one step behind. Needs to learn to make better, faster decisions. It will come in time. Don't get discouraged." I appreciate the positivity coming from Garth there. I feel like there's been quite a bit of negativity along the way. And you know what? Some of it definitely warranted, but appreciate that Garth is taking a look at the bright side, looking into the future.
Yeah, and again, and maybe we get back to what was said earlier about him being in the NHL and just treading water. It was Craig Button who said, maybe throwing him out in the deep end's not the way to go. And Garth says he must make better, faster decisions, but you can't do that if you're treading water. Maybe put him in the shallow end, and maybe he can figure out how to make better decisions, faster decisions, and make an impact. That analogy means not at the NHL level.
And then our final message comes from Dino in Gatineau, Quebec, and I'll let you take this one, Rick.
Dino says, remember what Hughes said leading up to the draft. Maybe not the best player now, but in 2, 3, or 4 years from now, something like that. Rick? Says Dino. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what Hughes had said. Dino goes on, I don't know, my friend. Slaf stays away from the contact, the physical parts of the game. He's still playing with one hand on the Sherwood. I like that. I like that phrase. He shouldn't be doing that. Slaf is very soft on the puck, soft on the bat check too. Coaching needs to address this too. No? Thanks for all you do from Dino.
Yeah, good message too. Very well thought out. And you can tell Dino's been paying a lot of attention to Slaf's game. I agree. He really does avoid some of the physical parts of the game. And when you're such a big player like that, a big, strong guy like Slafkovsky, you kind of need to have that physical part of your game developed.
Yeah, it was part of his game at the other. It was part of what made him successful, and he seems reluctant to use his size, to use his physicality against and all. Let's be honest. There are players as big as him, as strong as him, and stronger. But he's playing like a much smaller player at this point.
Absolutely. So coming up this week, we have 3 games tonight on Saturday, November the 4th, Montreal versus St. Louis. Christian Dvorak's coming in. Jesse Ulinen's going out, and it looks like Sam Montembeault will be the starter for this game. A couple days off in between the game that I'm going to be streaming on YouTube for the watch along party on November the 7th. Tampa Bay Lightning visit Montreal, and then a day off in between that one as well. And November the 9th, Montreal will be visiting the Detroit Red Wings. So plenty of good hockey to watch, and thank you for all tuning in today. That's going to be a wrap for us. Make sure to subscribe to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on any of your favorite podcasting apps. You could share it on social media as well if you like what you heard. Enjoy the week, and we'll be back here next Saturday, November the 11th, for another great episode. Thank you all for listening to the Canadiens Connection here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.